Hey YouTube, in this video I'm going to be talking about how to actually get faster on the track depending upon your mindset, which is very important. And this is just changing your thoughts to thinking the correct thing. And you might think this isn't big, like once you hear this little switch, you literally just flipping two words around. You're going to think it's not that big of a deal. However, it's massive. And it's literally don't chase times. When you hear that first, you might be thinking, okay, well, yeah, don't chase times, but what else am I supposed to be chasing? This is a sport where I'm supposed to be focusing on the seconds and the milliseconds as they drop off until they unfortunately stagnate, as they will eventually. How am I not supposed to be chasing these times, whether it's sub 12, sub 11, sub 10, and if possible, sub 9, if I'm not at those times? Because the only way I can get to those times is to chase them. And the right way to answer this is to finally fill in that void that you've been hearing time and time and again, is what are you supposed to be chasing? And the answer to that is chase form, not times. By doing that, you'll be chasing times, but you won't be doing it to as big of a degree. And the reason why you want to be chasing form is because form is what's going to allow you to improve. Any other place, whether it's plyometrics or when you're in the gym, you're chasing numbers. That's understandable. That is a time where you're supposed to be chasing numbers. Though for both of them, you should still heavily be focusing on form first and try and perfect the form before you try to chase these numbers. Luckily though, just like I will be in sprinting, as your form progresses and improves, your performance in plyometrics and in the gym will improve, and so will sprinting too, as long as you focus on form. And the reason why I want to focus on form is because if you've ever improved by a second, compare your form now to how it was before. Because the reason why I say a second is because a second ago was a very, very long time ago in a season or seasons. For example, if I was to compare my time when I was running 12.2 seconds to my time literally yesterday, of the recording of this video, not when it was posted, where I ran 11:18, the form was very, very, very different. But if I was chasing the times instead, what would have happened was my form would have improved, and once it improved, I would have hardened it. Because once you improve your form, you want to get the form and you want to harden it, because as your form improves, it'll be more difficult for your body to be performing at this higher level. It's more fatiguing. And once this form is hardened, that's the base level. That's the lowest you can get. So say, for example, my form improves once and I get 12 flat. My form hardens and I get 11.9. And then over the entirety of a season or two, I managed to drop my time down to 11.6. That's great. That's impressive. But I'm going to start stalling, because what I've done effectively was chase a time to get to 11.6, which allowed me to reach the speed wall, essentially, of what my form was able to give me, which is obviously something you should be chasing. But if you're higher up in the speeds, then even if you're lower down in your times, like sub 10 or like you was Usain Bolt, it doesn't matter. You still need to try to improve your form, because the form you have can only get you so far. Because once you hit that speed wall, you will not be able to surpass it, regardless of whether you do more plyometrics or better plyometrics, or you get stronger in the gym. Because plyometrics, they will improve you back by slight amounts, and after a while they will stagnate. And the gym work, that will also stagnate, and this stagnates much faster than anything else when it comes to improving your sprinting. But the one thing that will never ever stagnate is your form. The only time it can stagnate is if you make it so. You need to get out of your mind and accept that your form isn't the best and you need to improve it. Because when you start to chase form at the times, you can actually improve. Because think about what would have happened if in this scenario where I changed my form once and I got to 11.6, what would have happened if instead of getting this form that allowed me to go 12 flat instantly, and I just pushed through harder and harder and harder till I got to 11.6, I continued to improve my form. I improved it again and again. And that's where I am right now. I never ran a 12 flat race. I never ran 11, 9, 8, or 7 race. I've run a high 11.6 race. And after that, my form changed 2 more times and I dropped down to 11.18. And that's where I am right now. 11.18, because I chose not to chase. I mean, I was still chasing the time, but I knew that if I wanted to improve, I can't just make it so, okay, let me just go and grind out and do my absolute best. No, I know that if I want to get faster, I need to train in a faster manner. And trying to exert more force won't make me faster. It'll just mean I'm tensing up when I shouldn't be. I need to stay relaxed, which means if I want to get faster, there's only one thing I can do, which is work on my form. Once my form improves, I can get faster, because what you're doing is you're chasing a time, but you're doing it in a backwards way, because the way you do it is you improve your form until it gets to a certain level where it's like, okay, so I improved my form, and the minimum I could get with my form, if I perform my worst, is X amount of time. So let's say right now the form I have, the minimum I could pull off whilst doing my best. Like, let's say my start messed up. The minimum I could get with what I have right now, probably 11.4 or 11.5. But if my start is okay, and I put in all of my effort, and I put in not just all of my effort, but I relax with making so that the effort I put in is actually engaged and done in the correct way, then maybe I'd get the time I have now or a faster time, because my form changed recently again, which is where when I got the 11.18 hasn't hardened yet. So since it hasn't hardened, there's still time for it to improve. And once it's hardened, if my form doesn't change again, I can continue to improve and improve and improve as the times go down. But obviously I wouldn't want to do that, because I would just hit a speed wall, and I want to continue to improve. So I'd be trying to find ways to break this speed wall before I even see it. And the way to do that would be to improve your form. Obviously, you can't know whether your form is good enough, well, the improvement in your form is good enough to hit a certain time, but you can know whether this form is good enough to help you to improve, even if it's just by 0.1 or less. And that's the real goal here. For example, I'm aiming by the end of the season to get 10.5, which means that I need to have form that at the very least will get me to run 10.5, regardless of whether my form is hardened and I can't really not do my form like that or not. And what I mean when I say hardened is, you not only are you capable of doing this specific form you have now, but your body is actually able to withstand the form you're doing. Because yeah, you can do it, you can go through the motions, but you only actually get to understand when you run 100 meters or 200 meters and you're flat out tired, you're burnt out. I ran a race which was 24.4 for a 200, and I was in the form I am right now. And at the rate I was running that race, I did run the race incorrectly, but the rate I was running that race, I should have ran a high 21-second time, but instead I ran 24.4, which would just go to show, if your body's not ready to be producing what you're giving it, then you're going to burn out. Maybe you can run a faster time once your form's, I mean, obviously, once your form improves, you will be able to run a faster time. But if your body can't sustain it, the time won't be as fast as what your true potential is, which is why people change their form and then they progress throughout the entire season. Some people, they only make one form change and then their form changes drastically and they just drop loads of times. Maybe not to a ridiculous degree, but as long as you improve your form every season, you aim to, you get to drop more times. And the easiest way to do that is to actually look at your races and see where the major problem is. Is your major problem when you're upright, or is your major problem when you're trying to get to upright? Once you've identified that, you work on the problem and you fix it. Then you speak with your coach and you say, I want to get here. What kind of improvements do I need to work on? What stuff do I need to do? Because my coach, I would say he's really, really good. But there's one thing that he said to me that I guess you could say he forgot to say, because it was such a minor thing. He might have thought I was already doing it, but it was such a minor thing, and it was hip lock. Once he said that, I just realized, oh, I need to push like that, and then I incorporated that into my form. And right now, I'm working on trying to make it so that I can be more relaxed whilst doing that, so I'm able to decrease my ground contact times. And once I get that down, I can expect my times to improve. And for you, it'd be the exact same thing. If you want to chase a certain time, for example, I don't care whether it's a 12 flat or 11.5 or a 10.5 or even a 9.5, you need to speak to your coach and find out what you need to do to improve. Because maybe, obviously, the faster you're going, the less likely it is that it's a form problem. But maybe you need to improve your mobility so that your form is cleaner. For myself, I also know that my form is quite clean, but I still need to improve my mobility so it can be cleaner. Because there are other things that don't just involve trying to improve your form directly on a track that will result in your form improving. And this is generally just increased mobility. Generally, that's usually it. Increasing your mobility will allow you to go faster because your muscles can't be elastic if they're rock solid. It wouldn't make sense. And sprinting is a tendon dominant movement for majority of your steps. So if your tendons aren't mobile, they're not loose and they're not able to release this potential that they built up efficiently. You can only expect to go so fast. And I still have this problem. And I'm currently trying to work on that. And I'm of the belief that once I get that down, I should be running a sub 11 time. And maybe it'd be the same thing for you. Maybe your mobility is lacking, or maybe your form is so bad that you just need to really refine that and get down. But regardless of what the problem is, you need to identify it. Don't run from your problems, solve them. Because you can run through your problems as much as you want so that you have an excuse for every single time you have a race. You can say, oh yeah, this happened. Yeah, my hamstring injury. Yeah, my hamstring injury. My hamstring injury. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you don't improve. But everyone else, they're improving because they don't have the problem you have. Or maybe they're fixing the problems they get. That's one thing about me. I'll always race, and yeah, I'll probably have excuses for why I lost or I didn't do as well as I should have. But I know that I want to be the best. And I know if I want to get there, these problems have to go. Because to be the best, to be perfect, you can't have problems. For example, it's just like trying to mold a sphere. If it has even a slight chip or a bit of a protrusion, that's not a perfect sphere. So you still need to work on that. And it's the same thing here. You can have excuses. You can have excuses, but you need to aim to fix these because these excuses are holding you back from running faster times. And there's a good chance that these excuses are related to your form or they have hindered your form in some shape or form. And I know what that's like because I injured my left knee and that kind of just disintegrated my entirety of my form, and I'm still kind of trying to work back into getting my knee how it used to be. But I've worked hard enough so that my knee was no longer a problem the second it could no longer be a problem. And I'm just a tiny tink that I need to get rid of. And once that's gone, I won't have any problems with my knee. Maybe it's the same thing for you. I don't care whether it's an injury, a lack of mobility, or a form problem, a direct form problem, I should say. Regardless of what it is, fix this because this is what's holding you back from running a faster time. Because if possible, you don't want to hit speed walls when you're training because when you hit speed walls in your competitions, it doesn't feel good because you're going to be running the same time again and again and again and again. And then it might happen again the next season, but you don't have to hit speed walls if you chase form, not times. If you chase times, your form could degrade as you trying to push past these barriers. But if you just focus on form, these barriers are just going to move out of your way. Just move out of the way like air. Just think of it like air. Why would you force yourself, forced to drive through a physical concrete wall or a brick wall when you could just move these barriers out of the way and improve? So far in my season, it's been 36 days. Not of the release of this recording, but whilst I've been talking and sitting down here. So probably about 45 days. But regardless, this is my first race to the last race I just did. It's been 36 days. And since the start of my season, I've improved by 0.5 on the dot. And since, if we include my last season as well, I've improved by 1.02. And the reason why that happened was because I only chased form. I focused on improving my form. So I never hit any speed walls. So far in my season, I haven't hit any speed walls. And I've still got 36 days to go. And if I continue to focus on form and not hitting speed walls, who knows what I might do? I might get 10.5 like I wanted to. Everyone thought I was crazy, but it actually might happen. And everyone might think you're crazy, and you might be able to pull off what you want as long as you focus on form and not times. Because yes, genetics is a problem. Your genetics will eventually hinder you back. Maybe you're saying, I'm not black, so I can't improve as much as you did. But it doesn't matter, because as long as you focus on being driven and you focus specifically on improving in any possible way, like when you're in the gym trying to improve your form, when you're doing plyometrics trying to improve your form, I'm fairly certain the reason why I made such a big jump between 11.68 to 11.18 was because I actually tried to sprint my plyometrics. I actually used my hips and my glutes whilst I was doing my plyometrics, really tense, because when you're doing plyometrics, what you're really doing is, obviously you're focusing on trying to improve your tendons, but every single time you hit an impact, your bones, they micro tear, like muscles, they shatter slightly and then they heal back. And the harder and thicker, more dense your bones are, the better you're going to be at sprinting. And if I'm putting in this, maybe not as much force as when I'm sprinting, but crazy amounts of forces whilst I'm doing plyometrics, and because you have to absorb all of it quickly, with usually just with one leg, or even if with both legs, because it's a bit or harder movement than normal, and you're putting more force for sustained periods of time with less rest or less elastic work being able to be done because you're holding for longer, then that can only really improve. And it's the same thing for you. As long as you try to improve your form in all areas, it's impossible for you to get faster. Even if someone had a gun to your head and told you, do not run faster, unless you purposely didn't run your best, it's impossible for you to not improve. And maybe even if you didn't run your best, you might be so shocked that you still PB. It's that real. So as long as you focus on form, not times, in every aspect of your training, you can get faster, because I'm of the belief that every single sprinter who's sprinting right now can go sub 11. There's obviously some people that have a really high body fat that need to drop it down, and some people who think that the genetics are a factor and they're never going to break it. But I also thought that, but I've realized that it's not so big of a deal as possible. Maybe you wouldn't be able to quickly breeze through 11 seconds as I did, but you can still improve as long as you focus on your form. Because even if it's just 10.99, that's a 10-second time, and that's something you'd be proud of if you managed to do, because that would mean that all of these barriers you've broken since you've ever started sprinting, they just happened, and you get to prove that you actually can get a 10-second time, which is impressive, because that means you're literally only a second or maybe even less than a second behind the best in the world. And the faster you can get there, the happier you're going to be. And the longer you have to prove yourself wrong, because genetics isn't that big of a deal. As long as you actually focus on improving, you can get there. The only time genetics could be a problem isn't actually genetics itself, but your peak. Because once you peak, it's really hard to push beyond further. For example, Usain Bolt peaked and then he kind of stagnated. He never really got to where his PBs, which were world records, like he did before. And the only few people who have ever repeat, you could say, would be Kim Collins and the British person who did, I've forgot whether it was either triple jump or long jump, one of the two. And they both, Kim Collins went sub 10, and the guy that has the world record for triple jump or long jump, he got world records, and he did 2 world records in the one competition. He finally broke the world record in again. So it's just like that. As long as you focus on form, you're going to have more time, as long as you take care of your body. Because I'm not saying you're going to be able to maintain your peak for whenever you get to your peak up until 40 like they did, but as long as you actually push forwards and focus on form, your progress can improve drastically. If you like my video, like the video, let me know in the comment section below. Check the description, because anything I forget to say in the video, I always put in the description. And if you like my content, subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. I post every 2 days at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. If you don't know when that is, just hit the bell and then you'll be notified instantly.